we hear this all the time, and you've touched on it, I feel like, in several places, but I just want to hammer this home, and maybe you could just speak to it generally. How do you get individual stories to appear in location-based search results like local news in Bend, Oregon?
So individual stories, so like a story about like a forest fire or something like that, or a robbery or something like that, or something local politics. Uh,
Yes, yes, but really, I mean, all these publishers, they want all their stuff to show up when people look for local news in their town. So you mentioned, submitting to Google News through the publisher console, right?
mhm.
That sounds key. I mean, can you just kind of summarize the tactics for just getting your stuff ranked higher for location-based search?
So if the search term itself is location based, so if somebody's let's use the forest fire on Highway 97 as an example. If you think that's what people are searching for, then having that in the page title is really all you need. The Highway 97 in the page title.
Right.
Um, if if the search term is something like when is the new Winco going to open, or some story about a Winco coming to Bend, or whatever it happens to be, and they don't use the word Bend, but Google's going to know from click patterns it's a local search, then what's going to indicate to Google that that's a good candidate is clues on the page and the site itself that say this is a Bend, Oregon based newspaper, which means in the footer you want to have your address. In schema markup on the site, you want schema.org local business markup that indicates, you're the Bend Bulletin, you're at 123 Bond Street in Bend, Oregon. So that local schema is a signal that this is a local page and a local business. And Google will piece that together with the search term to go, okay, somebody's searching for the new Winco opening date, whatever it is, and they didn't use a city name. Google's going to go, I know from click patterns that everybody seems to be clicking on local results here. And so the user's IP address says they're in Bend. So let's find newspapers in Bend that have a story about the Winco opening.
Gotcha.
That makes
Okay.
sense? So some of
Yep.
it you're going to build into your template for the website in general and forget
Right.
about, because you've now given Google clues on every page through your template that you're in Bend, Oregon.
Right, right. And then the headline is key. Okay, very good. We have a question. We have a lot of people actually that are showing up. I don't know if you've ever heard of this app. It's called Newsbreak. It's a pretty cool aggregator of news. There's other news aggregator apps, obviously. Any comment on how those contribute to SEO?
I don't think there's any impact. So here's what happens when you have an aggregator app that drives traffic to your site. And it works a lot like a browser on a cell phone. Somebody's doing whatever it is they're doing, and the app gives them a link to click on that might launch their browser.
Hmm.
It might launch, say, Safari on an iPhone with that page from your newspaper website in it, or it might launch an embedded browser, which is very easy to do within the app itself. It's still going to look like a browser. Google's not going to see anything in Search Console, because Search Console, which tracks click-through rates and all that sort of stuff, only looks at stuff that comes to it from a Google search page. Google Analytics, which is separate from Search Console, tracks all traffic to your site. Google Analytics, what they're likely to see is either a referrer visit, that's where the referrer gets indicated as the name of the app if they're doing things correctly. Or what happens with some of them is they'll show it as a direct visit because the app is basically hiding the referrer information, or they simply didn't code it to send the referrer information. And so to Google Analytics, when a lot of people read story XYZ in your app, it looks like a whole bunch of people somehow just typed in the full URL of that article into a browser. That's what it's going to look like in Google Analytics. In terms of SEO, I've not seen any indication that Google search is looking at data from Google Analytics to impact rankings. They own both companies, right? Even though they're probably, not invented here, they're in different buildings and cities, whatever. They could share that data. I don't think that they are sharing that data from Google Analytics yet. And if they are, it's probably like little slices of it. So I don't think that's going to have any impact on SEO. What Google would eventually like to be able to do, if some of these apps are really popular, is treat those like they treat Facebook and Twitter and Pinterest and Reddit as a social media popularity signal, if they can.
Mm.
And the only place they could get that from would be Google Analytics. So it might be that, and Google never tells us what they're doing, right? They're so afraid that SEOs are going to game them to death. If Google is using Google Analytics, what they might be doing is looking at the referrer data to see, are you getting a lot of clicks from Facebook? Are you getting a lot of clicks from Twitter? Are you getting a lot of clicks from Reddit? Are you getting a lot of clicks from this app and that app? They might be doing that.
Right, right. Makes sense. All right, I think we've hit all of our questions, so I think
Awesome.
we can call it a webinar. Thank you so much, Michael. I learned a
You're very
lot
welcome.
today. This was a great refresher on some techniques that we could be using for our own marketing. But I think the response has been great. We're gonna share this video with everyone, so if you missed any part of it, we'll get that out soon. But again, thank you so much, Michael. I appreciate you sharing your expertise. This was wonderful.
You're very welcome. Thanks, everybody.
All right, take care. Thanks, everyone.